And Janna was very nervous to come and talk about herself. And I said, you don't need to talk about yourself. We need to talk about Kratom. What is a Kratom bar like?
Yeah.
Have you been to a Kratom bar?
I have been to Kratom bars, yeah.
Have you done Kratom in Kratom bars?
Have I done Kratom in Kratom bars?
You have?
No, I have not done Kratom in Kratom bars.
No? Why do people compare Cava and Kratom so much?
They are so, they're very, to me, very different, but they are so interwoven for a lot of people in their mind. I think partially when we talk about drinks like that, elixirs that were made with Kratom Cava.
What is Kratom or Kratom?
So Kratom has been used for centuries in Southeast Asia. So very warm tropical climates. It's been used typically a lot, often by day laborers, like people that were working hard all day long, maybe rice paddies.
Okay, so we're recording Dopey in what will be the new Dopey studio, which was once my childhood bedroom. I'm with Janna Wu, who is, what do you do?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed alcohol and counselor. I'm the director of cultural integration at Mountainside Treatment Center.
Cultural integration?
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
For all of Mountainside, like our detox, our residential, our outpatients, which are all over now, I help to make sure that we're maintaining efficacy to our treatment model, to the way in which we do things. So I train staff, so a lot of staff development, a lot of staff training, and then a lot of being in the clinics. I still help run groups and carry a caseload at times.
What's the cultural component of that?
The culture is actually, I would say, like Mountainside's culture.
Wow.
Yeah, making sure that sort of we maintain, again, what we started as we expanded and keep sort of that heart that we had, sort of keep on moving forward with best clinical practices, best trauma-informed care, and expanding our multiple pathways so that we have different options for people. So making sure we're doing all of that expansion while not being so expansive that we lose, again, our sense of self and who we are.
Right. So you're like the keeper of the Mountainside flame kind of thing.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Maybe you should change your title. Now, Janna worked at Mountainside when me and Chris were at Mountainside. Janna is also probably the most difficult guest I've ever had to schedule, most neurotic guest, and mismatching socks, which I appreciate, and notes. The first guest in the 8 years we've done the show, the first guest to ever bring notes besides me or Chris. And oh no, what's her face? Aaron Carr brings notes. So you're in good company. You, me, Aaron Carr, and Chris have brought notes. And Janna, you worked at Mountainside when me and Chris were there.
I started Mountainside in 2009. So I started as a clinician then, and I was there until 2012. And I left then and went to the Denver VA and worked in substance use disorders, and then came back and we had expanded all over. So then I started working as a primary clinician, the outpatient. So I was there, 2009 to 2012 as a counselor.
And you claim to have remembered me being there.
I can say I remember you, Dave. We can say that if you're.
I think you're one of the few people in any treatment center that I've ever been to that has any recall of me being there for some reason. And you said that I seemed crunchy, angry. What was the descriptor?
Well, crunchy, I meant like grumpy, not like crunchy hippie, but like a little, I think you just come in. I know you came, you had said recently you had just come from detox, because this was before we had our detox. But yeah, I remember you.
It was bad. When I got to Mountainside, I had walked into a wall on the Lower East Side, broken my nose, had a black eye, shot heroin on the way to the detox in the car. That was the first time I ever got to do that, which I was very grateful for that experience. Took benzos up until the moment of that detox, and I was out of my mind, and the patients in the detox stayed away from me. And when I got to the actual Mountainside place, I didn't feel that grumpy. I remember exactly what I wore, but I didn't feel that grumpy. And Janna's claim to fame, Janna's not allowed to say this, but I'm allowed to say this, is that Chris was in love with her. Chris was in love with you. He was in love with a few people, so you were in good company with that as well. But you were on the list of, and I think he wanted to have you on the show. I think we talked about you on the show.
Yeah, I have avoided coming on the show for a very long time. I can say that. That's why, I think that's why it was difficult to pin down a time as being avoidant.
were you avoidant because of the Chris component or because of the high-end production that we always do?
I think it's partially the high-end production. I think, like I told you, I don't gravitate towards podcasts. I've actually rejected. I've said no to a lot of podcasts.
Who have you turned down? Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan?
No. I've been asked to do podcasts, but I find it very intimidating. I like doing like sound bites and like news things. I love doing like CU presentations, but somehow a podcast, it feels way more personal.
It's very personal.
Very personal.
Especially now you're saying you bought these socks as a pair.
These socks are very old.
Are they a pair or are they from two different pairs that happen to both be Puma?
In like the same pack. Yeah, I think it was like that.
But
probably.
They were not a pair.
I didn't even notice they weren't a pair until you told me that they weren't a pair.
Maybe they are a pair. I'm just trying to rattle you.
I was just trying to be polite and I wouldn't wear shoes in
in my
studio,
father's,
but also the home.
Right.
Yeah.
I was trying to rattle you with the socks. I think you've done well with it.
Okay.
Now, Janna, what is a CEU?
CEU, it's credits for educational events. So so they could be for social work credits towards your license. Every year when you're a licensed professional, you have to get a certain amount of educational credits. So social workers get them, licensed mental health counselors, CASACs. So these are, credential education units, and they have to be 4-year discipline in order for them to count every year.
So when you do media for that, what do you do for it?
Well, that would be a little bit different than media. That's when I'm doing like a presentation, like an educational presentation. Tuan and I did one on the efficacy of practicing spirituality during a time of treatment, basically like talking about how there really is clinical evidence that practicing spirituality helps the results of treatment. And, it allows people to feel like a stronger connection to treatment, allows them to feel a stronger connection to their own healing. I've done CEUs on Kratom before to educate other mental health professionals on Kratom and lay people. Like that sounds like condescending, but just like anyone.
Well, the two words I've enjoyed the most so far are efficacy and lay people.
Lay people sounds condescending, but yeah, just like I mean for anyone that wants to learn more about.
What does
Kratom.
Efficacy mean? I love that word.
Efficacy, that something has proved, I don't know if it's proven is the right word, but that it's proven to have an effect.
Efficacy, I always liked it when they talked about like efficacy, like when a worked very well. It's efficacy, right? And spirituality is I wonder if efficacy comes from efficient, if it's related in words. I don't know. But spirituality is a very interesting component to getting well. Tuan is going to be on the show again this week. Tuan's a regular on the show. Tuan's a regular in our Dopey Patreon recovery Zoom.
Do you do his morning meditations?
Do you?
Yes.
No, you
I have done
don't.
many.
No,
I have done many. I've done at least 6 out of the 30, but then I've gone back and watched some replays. Have you done any?
No, but
They're
I turned it on.
Really good. They're 5:50 in the morning.
No, they're 5:55. 5:55. Because that's some kind of angel number.
Okay, I did know it was 5:55, but yeah, but you don't have to turn your camera. You can sit there and be in your pajamas. And
I like that he wears a robe.
Yeah,
he gets very wizardy.
Sound bowls.
He doesn't do sound bowls anymore, though. He said he's not doing that because he doesn't think it sounds good
recorded
through the computer.
Okay.
I'm up so early. I will do it. It's 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's about till 6:15.
I feel like I need a 5-minute version.
I usually end at 6:10.
In our group, and I'm sure it's more and more common that there's more and more people who are just Kratom people.
Well, tonight at 7 p.m. I have my Kratom group that I started June of, not this past June, but the June prior. So June 2023. But I have a Kratom support group, and I think I've only missed one. I even have done it from like Costa Rica, Seattle, like family vacations. I will log on because I love that community. And that I really love that group. I wanted to say it's like my baby, but it's not that. Like I just really do enjoy.
No, and that Kratom Zoom is a big Kratom Zoom, and a bunch of the Dopey Kratom folk came out of your Zoom.
Yeah, a lot of people hit a lot of the same meetings because there are meetings now every day, which is amazing. There's a lot of good resources, but there are Kratom meetings every day. We should put the link to like the Kratom support meetings in general at the end.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Janna was very nervous to come and talk about herself. And I said, You don't need to talk about yourself. We need to talk about Kratom. But before we talk about Kratom, Chris famously sent Janna Facebook messages, and you have the Facebook messages.
I do. And I will say for the record, like, so I can say, like, I knew Chris from the Berkshires, and he sent me Facebook messages and I never responded to them.
Because you thought it would be inappropriate if you did.
Yeah. And that was sort of the guidance. I never responded to them, but they really are quite like witty and
no, they're not.
I think they are.
Not. They're not even messages. He assaulted you with words.
But they weren't inappropriate or anything.
Well, I expected them to be way different than they are. Now bust them out.
Okay. So these are from like a long time ago, I'll just say. Like
yes.
Over 12 years, like over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So
what year are they from? Can you say that?
I can say what year they're from. I cannot confirm or deny, anyone's presence in treatment, but I can say I did receive these messages. So like February 2012, ravishing.
Hold up. That's 12 years ago. It's almost 13 years ago. Okay, keep going. So he doesn't say, "Hi, Janna, I think you're ravishing."
No, just ravishing.
Ravishing.
And then the next month, this one I have a hard time pronouncing. I think it's pulchritudinous.
Pulchritudinous, which means
I had to Google, and I'm pretty sure it means something like very beautiful, or like high standard of beauty.
So he sent them to you.
I recently Googled that, like before I came on, because I realized I'd never looked it up. I didn't know what it meant.
You don't need to say this, but I can say this. 2012, he was still in phase 4. So I can say that, right? Or can I not say that?
I can't say that. You can say
that. So it's just Chris is hardcore. What's the next one?
This one looks like superlative.
Superlative. Is it? Yeah, superlative.
This just seems right. So that was the.
Wasn't superlative like mean very special or no? I'm gonna look it up. Superlative is of the highest quality or degree. So he had a very high opinion of you.
And then this one here is the.
He never sent me texts like that. I mean, once in a while I'd get a ravishing.
Oh, here it is. Pulchritudinous. So we had it wrong.
Pulchritudinous. Dan, and that means. I don't even see a definition. Oh, it's beautiful. Dan gazed admiringly at the pulchritudinous brunette, which is you. Very, and so did it freak you out?
No.
What else is that?
No,
is it just
more
ravishing, superlative?
No, I gotta go now. Now I gotta go back to like. This is what's so funny too, that everything just stays there.
Yes, it is.
Stays there. So then there was a superlative. Then a few months later, missed it, divine.
Why do you think he wrote missed it?
I don't know. I mean, I can't recall what was going on in September of 2012.
Right.
And then the last one, indefectible. And
Let me see. Indefectible. Let's look it up. A person. Oh. I think this one was about. No, that's not the right word. Fucking Jesus Christ, Janna. What is this? Help me out.
We're getting
What's the word? Sorry, I want to apologize that I'm ruining the show right here. I
can just cut and paste it. We probably should have looked these up before.
Yeah, that would have been smart. Here we go. It means rare.
Oh, rare. Okay.
So, did it freak you out?
No. Like.
Were you very flattered?
I don't know if I was flattered. I didn't look up the words at the time. I think I'm positive actually. I just ignored them, but I didn't realize I had them actually until Chris passed, and I listened to the episode where his girlfriend goes on, and then the episode after that where you have or I don't know, maybe it's the same one where you have Tim Walsh and Ted and a lot of those.
It was the next one. It was Tim and Ted and Dylan and Colin.
Yeah, and it was so nice to hear their voices. Because I know them all from the Berkshires and just remember them. And there was like such a magic crew then. Really, I don't know, a lot of good intention. And I felt like, and maybe that's just me, but like very, it's probably is me, like a little bit like being like Wendy and the Lost Boys, like like just sugarcoating, just the feeling like there was so much good intention there. And these guys, everyone went out and did amazing things, actually.
I think
A
it's
lot of them
easy
did.
with them because they wound up starting a really successful business that helps a lot of addicts. If they all turned up dead, you probably wouldn't have that feeling. You know what I mean? It's like you
Yeah.
remember things based upon how they are now. But when you got those messages from Chris, were you like, what is this?
No, again, like nothing really.
Because Chris is remembered in the world of Dopey as very handsome, very lovable, very I still get emails, like every other email is like, I'm in love with Chris. So the fact that you got these loving messages, these adoration messages from this now post, he's gone, but sex stars, like some kind of a marquee idol kind of guy. Did you know that the Chris has this
Following? No.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's sad too because it's been 6 years and like we all just keep on aging, get older. Like I
and
think
he stays young and beautiful.
He stays young, yeah. And like I think back even to who I was in 2012, I was like 35 or something. I was younger, unmarried, didn't have children. My whole life was work. I love the work I do, and I still love the work I do. It's just life, keeps on getting more and more full.
What is it to be a young woman working in treatment with men your age, younger, older, like I'm sure that wasn't the first time that a client was into you.
Well, what's funny is no one else probably remembers this, but that episode that you have Tim and the guys on, they referenced me, and one of them was like, I think she was a lesbian. And so I was like, yeah, I think she was lesbian, but she's married now.
They said that on the show. Dopey?
Well, I'm totally fine with that. But it makes sense. I had and I still have really, I would say, very good boundaries, but I had pretty ironclad boundaries like my first few years of work. One, I had just come out of Smith School for Social Work, was very psychodynamic, very much about boundaries. And I had a big separation between sort of like my own recovery community and work, and was very firm.
You
like
weren't
I never
messing with it.
Yeah, no, I never just self-disclose like my own process or, anything like that. So I think boundaries really separated it. Like we have like the NASW code of ethics, which is like the social worker code of ethics. And then at work we have, boundaries and codes of ethics. So
well, and you were very, very serious about it, which is why you were probably so hesitant to come on the show, because it's all falls under the same auspice of like, I'm not fucking around with that. And the fact that on Dopey, they all decided you were a lesbian because they were all interested in you is...
No, I don't think they're all interested in me. I think that was just
perception.
That was just the perception. And I think too, again, I really maintain like I wasn't dating coworkers, wasn't dating anyone in the recovery community. I was very...
about your business, professional.
Yeah, and just didn't disclose anything about like myself.
Wow. I think it's very cool because my recollection of 2011 is so hazy. Like the fact that we existed in the same building and then so many years later we could reconnect. I think that's cool. Now, I'm also very, very interested because Kratom, how do you even pronounce it?
So people pronounce it both ways. And I've actually seen like the Times pronounce it both ways. Like not that that's the end all and be all, but I think that's interesting. And like other big publications, I've heard many people say Kratom or Kratom. And sometimes too, it's said that in parts of Southeast Asia, the hard R isn't pronounced. It's more like a Katum, but I don't know. And I've never been able to verify that, but it makes sense to me.
Let's start there. What is Kratom or Kratom?
So Kratom has been used for centuries in Southeast Asia. So very warm, tropical-like climates. It's been used typically a lot, often by day laborers, like people that were working hard all day long, maybe rice paddies, working for, again, long periods of time. So you could chew the kratom leaves and it acts as like a pain reliever and also a mild stimulant. So you can get through your work and work hard. And it also is boiled into teas, dried, boiled into tea. So it's been used forever in Indonesia, Thailand, throughout the world, and throughout the West, a lot of places too.
So it's kind of like an Eastern version of how they ate the coca leaves in South America or brewed tea before they turned it into.
Yeah, but yes. And I think there's just this interesting aspect With tea, yeah, in general, like how, yeah, when we look at teas and all the health benefits of teas and how culturally important tea is to so many places, it's hard to pathologize it. So when you talk about that, like, oh, you're taking like a tea all day to like help you get through, it sounds like a really good option of all the options we have.
But it isn't?
So I think like anything in the world, it's not binary. There are risks, and I truly believe there are benefits for some people. I think if in a lot of for some people that have used it for harm reduction from other substances or alcohol, they have found it to be very, very helpful. Also, I have, spoken to and understand a lot of veterans that have stated it's been very helpful for PTSD. A lot of people say it helps depression. I don't think I have the right to argue with anyone's experience. If that's what someone says has helped them, that is their experience and that is what they know to be true. Other hand, I've really seen some pretty extreme detrimental effects for a lot of people. I've seen how it can sort of ravish families the way other substances can do. I see how it can create massive isolation, how it can really challenge the physical body. I think like, constipation, hair loss, skin discoloration,
Hair
seizures,
loss?
like all sorts of things. Yeah, there's a lot of different side
Does
effects.
any other cause hair loss?
Probably, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
And
that's, again, not for everybody, but these are, again, some of the more problematic aspects that some of the people in my life have experienced that, I really wanted to dig deeper in and see, like, what's going on. And I think it, again, comes back to nothing's all good or all evil, and the fact is with Kratom, it's unregulated and it's really prevalently used. Some industry, and when I say industry, I mean like sort of like Kratom lobbyists, supporters say that, several million people are using Kratom daily. Other people estimate that less than 1 million people are using it daily. Other research. It's really hard to quantify though, because some people don't even recognize it as like a substance of concern and see it just as a supplement. So they wouldn't even report it to their doctor or their substance abuse therapist, or their primary care doctor or anything. But I think that's actually changing now. I think anyone that starts to look into it even a little bit can see how much is out there as far as like Reddit, the subreddits, and a lot of other resources online that are starting to really speak up about some of the more problematic aspects. And then also that talk about, a lot of the benefits.
Kratom is crazy though. And I think with things like this, like it took like spice or whatever the synthetic weed was that you could buy in a gas station, the way you can buy Kratom in a gas station. It took people like going insane on the substances for them to not be in the gas station. And I think with Kratom, because no one's overdosing from Kratom.
There are some reports of people overdosing
from the
Kratom
extracts or from the powder.
It tends to be from the extracts, but there's also then too different arguments that no, they might not have reported. There could have been household contaminants as well, like that. Sometimes there's there's just a lot of arguments on both ends. I think of both sides that there are Kratom only deaths, and then some people state they were not Kratom only. I think I would trust those families that had the autopsies that state that this was a Kratom only death. I don't think people have a reason to sort of personally want to shift that narrative so desperately that they would lie about there being other substances.
But I think when the tragedy is so great, people lose sight of what actually happened sometimes.
True. And that's where, again, some of what I've heard from some people that research Kratom is that sometimes things aren't reported. Just like originally when people started reporting deaths from fentanyl, they weren't sort of breaking it down to like the different types of fentanyl. And now we do, at least in the state of Connecticut, and it's really defined, what was exactly in someone's system. I think with Kratom too, sometimes there are some reports too that there have been other things, or even just like alcohol mixed with it or cannabis.
And that's totally, you have to know that stuff when people are dying, like what is killing them.
Yeah.
And with Kratom, I mean, what I want to do is we hear from so many people in Dopey about experiences and problems and questions. And I figured since you're this big time Kratom expert, I wanted to read you some emails and maybe you could help me with it.
I can try to help you.
All right.
Some of them, though, it's like I think the biggest point to come back to is more research needs to be done. Even NIDA, the National Institute on Abuse, they really believe too, like I do in Mountainside, that there needs to be more research to see the potential benefits and then really flesh out the risks. And I think people hate to hear this, but like potentially regulation, I know.
Why would people hate to hear that though?
Well,
Wouldn't that
because-
make sense? It's
yeah.
this crazy that you can buy like while you're buying a Snapple.
Very true.
If
But
they still sell Snapple. Even.
I think they still sell
Okay.
Snapple.
Will you listen to this email, please?
Okay.
It says, Dear Dave, first, thanks for such a successful podcast that helps so many people. You are doing the Lord's work. I am an almost original listener, found this podcast in 2016 during a period of my life in which it was super helpful. Opiate run had just ended, and I'm proud to say that I'm still going strong in that regard. I listened faithfully up to the point that Chris died, but after that, and despite not knowing either of you, I simply found listening to the show to be too painful. I've recently come back, and wow, there are so many episodes. Congrats again. I've searched a few times for episodes dealing with Kratom. You treat that subject with a mixture of curiosity and ambivalence, and that seems appropriate since Kratom has helped a lot of people dealing with more dangerous opiates, but can also be a difficult addiction itself. I am writing to encourage you to talk about 7-OH. That's 7-hydroxymetagrenine.
Mitragynine.
Thank you. It's a secondary alkaloid that is present in the kratom plant in very small amounts. Within the last year, there are scores of new companies selling it in pure form. These things hit the market late 2023. I fear that this is going to be a big problem. It is both more euphoric and shorter acting than even the super powerful kratom extracts. It's expensive, and like kratom, it is popping up everywhere, easily available to young people. Reddit now has more and more stories of people taking 10 or 15 of these pills per day. Where I live, that would be $80 to $120 per day. 7-OH is apparently 13 times stronger than morphine. Here are a couple of analogies. You smoke 1990s ditchweed, and someone gives you the strongest 2024 THC gummy on the market and says it's the same thing from the same plant. You abuse Vicodin or Tylenol 3 and someone gives you pure heroin or 80 milligram oxycodone pills and says it's the same thing, synthesized from the same plant. I worry that something similar is happening now with Kratom and 7-OH. Curious if you've talked about this in an episode or would consider doing so. At any rate, thanks again for your podcast and your example. I wish to remain anonymous if that's okay. So just Felix, thanks, toodles. Janna, what do you think about this?
About 7-OH? I think it is concerning. It's the most like an opioid. That's, like you said, there is supposed to be something with the ceiling effect with the mitragynine and then it's distilled to the 7-OH, where I don't know how to describe this properly because I'm not like a scientist, but that there is an element that it's more safe still than an opioid as far as respiratory distress. But there's definitely a huge market. We can speak to that, like you said, more and more popping up and more being advertised, promoted as like just an incredible like sense of relief, then just an incredible option for people. And I think whatever the case, like we were really well aware that we are a culture that's really addicted to having like our MU receptors filled and really addicted to that.
What's an MU receptor?
That's like where the opioids plug into. So it's like that feeling, and I think as a culture, we really like that feeling. So here's something that can give us that feeling that's sort of, again, being sort of like when Felix talks about something being so, I don't want to say cultivated, but so curated to give you the most distinct high. This is very much created to have a very distinct effect that's very similar to opioids.
I worry about this because one of my concerns is like people who do and now do fentanyl are like scared of dying, so they do kratom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like a very, very quick transition for somebody. Rather than to get into recovery, they're like, well, I don't want to get killed from fentanyl, so I'm going to do kratom. And then an email like this that says this is like that. Do you think this is like, do you think we're doing harm right now in some kind of way?
Yeah, no, I think we are doing harm.
You do?
I do, because again, even though
Jesus.
I think that there is a purposefulness for it, and there was for centuries, I think, again, sort of the extracts and then extracting out the 7-OH.
No, I mean, we, like you and I, reading this email on the show.
Oh, doing harm because people are going to look for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I worry about that all the time. I worry about that all the time because we're all looking for relief in some way. So I do worry. So I think we could talk more about some of the negative consequences for people that have a history of addiction and a history of mental health or behavioral health disorders. So just like you're saying, it is very people. A lot of people state it's really for them a harm reduction, save them from alcohol, save them from fentanyl. That's been their experience. That's incredible. And sometimes even those that it saved them from something, it has very addictive properties for many people that struggle with addiction. Not all addicts will identify that way, but many people that have struggled historically with addiction, have mental health or behavioral health disorders, can get what is not in the DSM now, but a kratom use disorder. It's not actually even officially diagnosable yet, but they can have all those criteria that we have, like the 11 criteria we have, like for alcohol use disorder, opiate use disorder. We can apply those to kratom use disorder. And I do believe, and I'm hoping that it will be in the new DSM, a kratom use disorder, because I do believe many people do have that. We can be addicted to a lot of things, food, sex, all sorts of things. So I think even something really good we can be addicted to, like kratom. And it can,
Totally.
again, have really devastating consequences for
And,
people.
and the consequences are more like you're going to get sick. You're going to be physically addicted to it. I mean, like I have a friend who swears by kratom because he was an addict and he's not on methadone and he's not on Suboxone, but he's on some kind of like maintenance dose of kratom. And here, I'm going to read you the next one. You ready for the next one?
Okay.
But the negative side is you get addicted to it. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of overdose, though.
There are reports of overdose, and there are significant reports of seizures. So
Seizures.
I think there are less reports of respiratory. Sorry, I keep on touching them. Like respiratory
That's okay.
distress.
That's the backup mic.
Oh, okay. Respiratory distress, and more of again the seizures. There's and some psychosis. Some other negative effects and unpleasant effects. Again, the GI effects can be really significant, like
That would
massive
be gastrointestinal.
Yes, like massive constipation. A lot of people. What's interesting about kratom, it's like people take it in the beginning sometimes for like weight loss, and then in the end, it's like again more GI effects of like really painful like stomach discomfort, like significantly, like having to go to the ER and just being in massive pain. Some people take it for social anxiety, and then for some people again only it's like they can't leave the house then without it. And the social anxiety is spiked and so much worse unless they're dosing. And like a lot of other, they've built up a tolerance. You got to dose more. And you reach a point where you're not getting the same effect anymore that you originally took it for. And you're not getting that relief that you took it for. Like one important thing, I will go to the email that's so important, I think, with all these conversations is recognizing why people are using kratom. Because a lot of people have different reasons. Sometimes it's for pain, arthritis. Sometimes it's, again, for mental health, PTSD, depression, anxiety. Sometimes it is like busy moms that are just like, I need more energy. I need more energy today to like do the soccer games, do the homework, get through this day, get through my job and my kids. There's a myriad of reasons, not just the arthritic pain, but other types of physical pain, back pain. So I think it's so important to ask people and figure out what they're using it for. Because it's not just often, it is often to get off of other substances, but it can be, again, so many different factors. So in some ways, I see how it's touted as like this miracle. Look at that long list of things it can help with.
But it sounds exactly the same as every other.
Yeah.
Like every once was that, and then it became this horrible scourge. Like, when I started taking it definitely helped me with anxiety. It gave me energy in weird places. It relaxed me. And then before I knew it, I was just at home shooting, not feeling, I was still getting high, thank God, until the tolerance became too bad. So it's what you're describing to me sounds like basically every.
But wrapped up in something healthy like a tea that's used in Asia. Everyone loves everything Asian. It's like this is wrapped up again too in a botanical, a supplement. So
but
we also
opium is Asian.
Yes,
has got Asiatic roots.
Yes.
So not everything. A lot of
Not
Asian
everything.
stuff
Well, I
is
know.
holistic and good, but not everything.
That's not. And then also, I'm thinking of some like recent commentary about things from China. Yeah, right. Everyone doesn't love everything from Asia, but I think from like a holistic health point of view, we look at like acupuncture and Chinese traditional medicine and herbalism and moxification, all these interesting, incredible techniques that have been used for centuries. And tea, again, going back to what I started with, tea's always been a part of Asian culture. So then we have this tea that's been like bastardized, for lack of a better word, and put into elixirs that are literally like 30 times stronger than you could ever get from a tea.
But the irony, it's what addicts have always wanted in holistic medicine. Kratom is exactly what the addict wants, which is to get high from holistic energy.
Oh, that's.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a wants this thing to hit the way Kratom hits. And then when they find out it's not healthy, it's like.
Well, again, I think too, like there is this nuance to it. Again, so I've also been like a hospice social worker and hospice volunteer for years. So I've seen like over 12 years. So I've seen the benefits, like in its best form of what fentanyl can do, where it can be an incredible relief, for someone that's dying and for their family to see someone out of pain. So you see, like again, I don't think something is all evil or all good. So seeing that complexity and like seeing that purposefulness, there could be a purpose for it, but I don't think right now for a lot of people, there's not a lot of intentionality and purpose. It's kind of lost in the addiction right now.
Well,
because they're sort of like a slave to it.
And that's another thing that addicts are known to do, right? They want to do the right thing, but then they wind up being slaves to the substance. All right, you ready for the next one?
Okay.
Are you okay with this?
I am okay.
Are you interested in what the Dopey Nation has to say about this stuff?
I am. Well, I've listened to some of them. I loved listening to Margaret Cho's, and I've listened to a few other people you've had talk about it.
We're doing a show with Margaret Cho in March. You have to come.
I'm very excited. I would love to.
Good. Hey, Dave, feel free to read, but don't use my name, please. I've had tons of experience with all types of Kratom, so I thought I'd respond to that emailer. Felix, I think my experiences are a little different than what you hear usually, and I straddle the line between harm reduction and addiction. I'm an alcoholic. I had addictions to tons of other substances, but alcohol really screwed me up. Put me in the hospital with my liver failing, etc. really bad. When I got out, I was very freshly sober, and my mental health issues were kicking my ass. Instead of going back to drinking, I used a bit of Kratom leaf. Like the way he says leaf, like the Hobbit likes to say leaf. It was life-changing for me at the time. I used a small amount, and to me, it felt like my alcohol cravings were gone. My anxiety was lessened, but I didn't feel euphoric or high. Later, I used larger amounts, but for a long time, it was the perfect maintenance drug for my alcoholism. I have had a couple of bouts of Kratom withdrawal, but I found tapering to be pretty easy. Plus, having gone through alcohol withdrawals, Kratom withdrawals seemed more manageable. To be fair, this was always just from the powdered leaf, and I had weaned myself down to 5 to 10 grams a day. I had tried some Kratom extracts in the past. They sucked, in my opinion. The leaf was better, but the shit now, it's intense. The first thing I tried was a feel free. I wrote you an email on this. I don't know what happened to that. Mark my words. This is an epidemic waiting to happen. I know people will go through 2 cases a day, which around here in Colorado is roughly $200 to $225 a day. You may have seen the bad publicity it got because it used to only list Cava on its nutrition label, leaving out Kratom. Someone sued and now they include Kratom. Personally, I think they are still hiding something in it. The high from 2 of those versus the high of equal amounts of listed Kratom and Cava is not even close. It is incredibly euphoric, but has a short half-life. So the itch to get more starts fast. I got off this using powdered Kratom. But there's many out there who are having life-altering addiction to FF, which is feel. You know about Feel Free?
Yeah, we talk a lot about Feel Free.
Hold on, 7-OHM is the other one. Yeah. One place I read, it's around 0.03 by mass in powdered leaf, but now you can get 60 milligrams from the gas station. It's strong. The first time I tried pressed, I tried 36 milligrams, I think. I had a Kratom tolerance. This knocked me on my ass, puking, too dizzy to walk, etc. I think the addiction potential between the powdered leaf and these new extracts is going to be a huge difference. In my opinion, and everyone's different, the leaf can be a really successful harm reduction substance, and careful weaning avoids withdrawals. But this new shit, the addictive level has gone up so high that I think it's too harmful to use that way. Anyway, looking forward to all the new Dopey. I love Tony's app. Big fan of hers. I'm 6 years off booze. And when I'm feeling really shitty, Dopey pulls me out. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking toodles for Chris. So, what do you know about Feel Free?
I think that was really well written, first of all. I think that he or she encapsulates it really well.
This person is an old school dopey person because I remember them from the Chris days that they'd write us. Anyway, yeah, they are a great writer.
Yeah, I think that there have been several like pretty big, I don't know if it's class action or just pretty significant lawsuits, for Feel Free. There are a lot of people that say it's been an incredible struggle and it is highly addictive. Just in the fact that it comes in a shot and people can take so many in a day. I love that they bring up the cost too, because that's often what I see brings people into treatment is that they're spending thousands of dollars a month on
Feel Free, whatever.
extracts. I mean, there are other brands too that are similar. Feel Free, I feel like it's probably the most popular as far as like to what's out there for recovery for it and just like by name. But it's sort of like saying Kleenex, like tissues. Like there's a lot of other ones too that are just as problematic. And again, I've seen it do to like families, marriages, and finances because it's so discreet too. I mean, you could get some and like take it all day at work too. Like dump some, drink some, toss and wash for like the tea, but like you could, extracts are pretty small. You can hide them in your car, and it doesn't smell like alcohol.
Does it come up on tests?
Good question. So it does. For certain companies, you have to do what's called like an add-on or like, specify basically, I want mitragynine like tested on this person's sample. And we do that often because a lot of people identify that they're using it. We'll say like, okay, like, how's that working for you? Is this something you want to decrease? Some people do come in for Kratom only. So then of course we would test for that frequently to help them. And also to sort of like, for a lot of people, it's very affirming when they get several tests that are negative. But yeah, you can test for it. But a lot, it's commonly like an add-on, and then it doesn't come up yet on rapids. I wouldn't be surprised someday again if it's diagnosable, if we have more treatment options. Because right now there's actually no solid evidence-based treatment protocol. There's a lot of things that people are doing, providers are doing that's working, and there are a lot of kratom detoxes like throughout the nation that are doing amazing work. But I think things will get more standardized, which has its pluses and its minuses if it does get more regulated. So yeah, it doesn't test right now on any rapid that I know of. And so like it's a problem for sober homes if they don't want people using it because
sober homes need to test for it, right? That's like seems like the perfect place to be testing for it.
That seems like a lot of where people can use it too because, it's not tested for. And again, it doesn't smell, easily accessible. You could go out and get it very easily at a bodega, at a gas station, at a smoke shop. Online, really easy.
When I was in a halfway house, sober house in Florida in Delray, there were Cava bars. And I went and I drank Cava and it didn't do anything. Like, why do people compare Cava and Kratom so much?
They are so, I don't want to say like they're very, to me, very different, but they are so interwoven for a lot of people in their mind. I think partially when we talk about drinks like that, elixirs that were made with Kratom Cava, so they came together like that. There are a lot of Kratom Cava bars, particularly in Florida, a few other places, I think tend to be more south. And I don't know, this is again, not to like advertise, but like some of them are really, really nice, like they're lovely, well lit, lots of plants, cats, like you could bring your kids, it's like the alternative to a bar. But again, if this is like your substance of like your kryptonite, it's not helpful.
But it's like a Kratom bar. If Kratom hits you like and speed, what is a Kratom bar like?
Yeah.
Have you been to a Kratom bar?
I have been to Kratom bars, yeah.
Have you done Kratom in Kratom bars?
Have I done Kratom in Kratom bars?
You have?
No, I have not done Kratom in Kratom bars.
No?
No, I think, again, you can get tea in Kratom bars too, just like normal herbal tea.
Do people bug out in Kratom bars?
No, not the ones that I've been to. They've been very...
tranquil.
Yeah, I was going to say peaceful. And
that's what they said about opium dens too.
Yeah.
Very peaceful. Very peaceful places.
But I am a fan of, in general, being transparent and like talking to people about what they get out of it, to like out of a place of curiosity. Like, why are you here? Why is this helpful? How has this helped your life? And I'm willing to share too, like my experience. This is where I think it's been really challenging for a lot of people, like really, really challenging, really hard to get off of, very uncomfortable. And I think that's, again, this very deceptive part of it, where something that's so wrapped up in like a more wholesome package that it is so hard to get off.
The innocuousness of it.
Yeah.
So Kratom or like what's harder to kick?
A lot of people do say actually that they have kicked Kratom's harder. And I don't know, again, if it is that like deceptiveness or if it's, again, I think for some people, I see like a lot of people really struggle at like the 30 days, the 90 days. That's very hard. It has its hooks in you really similarly, I think, for some people, again.
And what do we do to treat it?
Okay, so there are a lot of options, like I mentioned, for Kratom detoxes, like formal Kratom detoxes where you could go and have like a medical detox. Like this person that didn't give their name talked about like a taper. There's a lot of tapers that are online where people go through step by step. I'm not going to advocate for one thing or another, but for Kratom detox, what we would typically do like at Mountainside, we do it. Our staff is pretty knowledgeable about Kratom. We would probably start with like comfort meds, things to make people feel comfortable to get through the withdrawals. Some people do choose to go on buprenorphine. Some people are pretty adamant that they don't want to take that path because some people get on Kratom, as we were talking about, to get off of Suboxone. But it can be a very safe option for people, especially if someone's pregnant.
Is it easier to get off buprenorphine or Kratom?
That, again, is debatable, I think, based on people's personal experiences. I think we're all wired differently. And I think for some people, it's easier to get off of buprenorphine than Kratom. And then I've heard definitely the inverse is true.
Well, everyone says how hard it is to get off methadone and that kicking methadone is so much worse than kicking heroin. And in my experience, I mean, I think it was pretty similar, and I was on buprenorphine for very short periods of time, and I thought it was similar too. So I would imagine it's all like where somebody is in their life when they're kicking. Everyone decides this is the worst kick. It sounds like fentanyl from what I'm hearing is the worst kick, but somebody else wrote, I have a beef with the demonization of Kratom. I take it daily for energy. I buy it in powder form and swallow a teaspoon in a parachute. You know about parachutes? Once or twice a day. People can become addicted to anything. Kratom probably should be regulated more than it actually is, but there were 13 deaths between 2011 and 2013, and 11 of those users had other in their systems as well. Seems to me that is a good form of harm reduction. Okay, rant done. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and toodles for Chris. So, it's like one man's ceiling is another man's floor. If Kratom is working for you and you're not dying on fentanyl, good. And if you're hating Kratom and you want to get off of it, you can get off of it.
Yeah. And that sometimes things work until they don't, like we know. For like I know a few episodes you were talking about not having any sugar. That's another one of my passions.
What's your passion with that?
I don't eat sugar and I haven't for a very long time.
How long has it been?
I want to say since like 2007.
So what do you do for dessert?
What I do? I mean, I do fake sugar. I do I'll drink like a Celsius that has all sorts of like chemicals and fake sugar in it.
But for dessert?
For dessert, there are sugar-free desserts actually.
Well, what do you do for dessert?
I'm personally actually not really a big dessert person.
So giving up sugar wasn't that hard for you?
I think it's been so long, that like it's like I've been so long since I had a birthday cake type of thing, or that like I don't miss it.
What do you do for your birthday? Nothing sweet?
Nothing sweet for my birthday.
I had no sugar from, I think, for all of September because of my vanity for DopeyCon. And then as soon as DopeyCon was over, I like went bananas. And then Halloween hit, and it's like I'm in bad shape with it. Like my sugar addiction is off the charts again, and I'm ready to cut back. Do you equate sugar and Kratom sometimes?
I think people hate this, but I do think Kratom and like food addiction actually, yeah. I mean, I think food addiction is one of our most powerful addictions, certainly in our culture. And it has a lot of devastating effects too when we're not eating, I think that sounds like pejorative, what's best for us, but like what's best for each individual's body. And sometimes that is like having sugar sometimes. Like I don't think that's like that path is for everybody.
Did you ever have a sugar thing?
I think.
Did you ever like chocolate chip cookies?
No.
How can that? This doesn't make sense.
I think it's more like I feel like I realize
I'm trusting you less and less by the moment.
No, but I think I realize like I feel better. I equate alcohol to sugar, and I don't drink. And to me, they're exactly the same. Like food that has a lot of sugar in it to me, and I know they're not exactly the same. You're not going to get a car accident from it, but like the lethargy, the not feeling good. Like for me personally, again, that's someone else. Like I think there are alcoholic foods and foods that just don't serve me. And I don't think alcohol serves me. So I don't drink.
So it's all in that kind of, see, and that's a very, very smart place for an addict or an alcoholic to put it. I have a serious chocolate chip cookie problem, chocolate problem, sugar problem. Not candy, but chocolate, dessert. I guess chocolate candy.
So it seems like, isn't chocolate supposed to be like dopamine, like looking for
Yeah.
just dopamine, which is so many places we're all looking for dopamine.
Yeah. Wow. I think you've shed a lot of light. Would you say this is a kratom epidemic?
I wouldn't be surprised if we got there. Again, I think there are a lot of people it does not work for, but I don't think that I'm not a fan of any kind of all out ban on anything. I think just, again, regulating and doing more research.
Do you
Like no
think
sort of prohibition, because we know that doesn't work. No prohibition. And no, I don't think it should be treated in a punitive manner, certainly. Because again, people are looking for some sort of relief. And I think as a society, yeah, we're on an epidemic of looking for relief. And then we have like the post-COVID world where we're all looking to, not we're all, many of us are looking towards online to like solve all of our healthcare problems. And that's where I think Kratom just totally blew up in the West too, is during COVID, where we were all looking online all the time anyway about health stuff and you get delivered to your door.
and it's very, very potent. It's not like kava. It's not like spirulina or fucking, a less, like a more innocuous kind of thing. Kratom is going to get you high. It's going to do something. Do you think it belongs in gas stations, Janna Wu?
I think it belongs in gas. I don't think we should be getting much in gas stations.
But gas.
But gas,
How
yeah.
about, and Pringles.
I guess
You
so.
should say Pringles don't belong in gas
Yeah,
stations.
no, I think, I don't think it belongs in gas stations.
So where should Kratom be?
That's a really good question. Because it's, again, I understand too, we're also in a world that's pretty frustrated, like with pharmaceutical companies, frustrated with our current medical system, frustrated with a lot of things, our insurance policies. I mean, there's like a lot that is pretty inefficient and ineffective and not efficacious in our medical and mental health system. So I would hate to say like we have to medicalize it and get insurance involved and all these types of things. So again, I like the research perspective. Let's start at research, and then because I don't have a good answer for it. I want to see what the research says and then figuring out how we can safely do it. Like if that's things like how we've regulated cannabis. I mean,
Well, it's funny because where I live, I think they sell THC gummies in the gas station too. I think once cannabis, weed, whatever were legal, like different things started showing up in the gas station. And I think the only real reason that this stuff shouldn't be in the gas station is because there are kids in the gas station and there's teenagers in the gas station. And it's too available to really young people, vape shit, all that stuff. But all of a sudden I sound like a very old, punitive person. Should Kratom belong in a dispensary?
I really feel like I can't call that yet, again, until there is more research on how it can be used in a way that's more safe. Although I say that, and I think there are a bazillion people online that are going to hear that and be like, that's so stupid. I use it so safely. That's why, blah, blah, blah. So should it belong in a dispensary? I don't know, Dave. I don't know.
What do you think about cannabis legalization?
What do I think about cannabis legalization?
Do you think it's better for all these addicts or worse?
Addicts, particularly?
For society, for addicts, for whatever. And you're a mental health professional who helps addicts. For society, do you think cannabis dispensaries, cannabis legalization, are you with it or are you not with it? I ask hard-hitting questions.
You
on
really
Dopey.
do. I mean, I am for the legalization of all substances, I guess. So I would say if this is the way we're doing it now, and if the money truly, like I know when it was first rolled out in Colorado in like 2012 or so, a big portion of it was really supposed to go to public education. And I think, again, looking at where the money is, if there's a way that we can really put the money back into treatment for people that struggle. But even though that seems like we're putting it out there and then people struggle and then we're feeding a suspicious cycle. But I think the reality is we know people are going to use it anyway. So I think I'd rather have it well studied. But there's so many problems. Like that's what I don't know if we have time to get into, like just the inequity in it and just how when it was decriminalize how it affects a certain strata of population and who's making the most money from it now. So I think there's a lot of problems.
Are you worried about the weed farmers in California that have been put out of business by corporate cannabis?
I was more just thinking about like the rampant like racism of people for like previously being incarcerated for like minor
But
weed
now
charges
they're
that have
getting
affected their
dibs.
lives.
They're
hope
getting
so. It
dibs
really
on
works out.
selling weed. The formerly marijuana incarcerated, which seems really good, but surprising that they're actually doing
It
that.
sounds like it's going to be hard
Of course.
and complicated.
Sounds like
and
a
too
very
much bureaucracy. Yeah.
It'll be very, very corrupt.
There aren't easy solutions, but this is why, again, I would say more of the micro than the macro. Like I didn't go, I like helping one individual at a time,
Totally. No, and I'm just having fun.
But they're good questions. They are hard hitting. No one has asked me that in a long time.
What about do you think there should be dispensaries? Do you think should be prescribed? What's your take?
Well, that's a hard one. I mean, I think there should be safe places for people to use.
But you should, it's BYOH. They don't think any of these places should give you the.
It would probably be safer though.
Probably.
It'd be way safer. And then they could, obviously it'd all be tested with fentanyl strips and everything.
Right, yeah.
It'd probably be way safer.
Free or very expensive? How would you, if you could decide that the dispensary, would they just give it out willy-nilly or do they charge?
I feel like there would be such a revolt if they gave it out willy-nilly. People would be like doing horrible things to these places. Like, I don't know. We're pretty unhinged. I think we'd have to come up with a better system. I don't, again, know what that is. I could never be a policymaker.
Well, thank you, Janna. It's such a pleasure to have you in my childhood bedroom. Can you believe this is the room where I grew up?
No, I can't. I can't believe I'm sitting here.
What about it seems so not real to you? Its size, its clutteredness, or just the fact that I'm 50 and I was once a small boy in this room?
I think the bars in the window strike me.
Yes. Those are new bars
because
too.
We're so high up. Yeah.
That's because kids used to fall out of the windows before bars.
That's really sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pre-window bars.
But I like that. It's a really beautiful window. It's really nice. You have a nice view.
You can see straight to New Jersey. Thank you, Janna. I appreciate you coming around.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for getting me here. Thank you so much.
And Dopey Nation, if you have any more Kratom questions, I'm sure Janna would love to come back on and answer them. Probably take us like 6 months to get her back. Would you come on again and answer, or you're never going to do this again?
I don't know. I will see how it turns out.
In the middle of this, were you like, why am I doing this?
A little bit.
Why?
It was hard.
What was the hard-hitting question?
It was challenging.
What's the hardest hitting question I asked?
Wanting to make sure I'm respectful too about like disclosure and non-disclosure.
Oh, we avoided that pretty nicely, I thought. I think we did a pretty good job with non-disclosure. I think as somebody who takes care of addicts and who works for a treatment center, it's got to be a lot of pressure. But I think you're the first Mountainside employee who is very conscious of not putting themselves really out there.
Yes, you could have. Yeah, we can definitely say that. I would not put myself really out there.
Twan was pretty careful as well. Initially, but the other ones went willy-nilly.
They were really good, though.
They were great.
Too. It was beautiful to hear their stories.
Very great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janna.
Thank you, Dave.
Right on.